let's see. So this is one change you can make right away. We need to guard our hearts and minds. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. Where your treasure is, that's where your heart is, Jesus said. And one of the things that I think is interesting is that things like social media can really make people start comparing themselves to other people, right? This is just not good. We see questions about body image and belonging, questions about am I good enough? These questions keep coming up when you're watching on social media and seeing all the things there, right? So delaying social media to the age of 16 is one of the best things you can do for your child. No social media, period, before the age of 16. That's one of the ways that people are tackling this problem, and they seem to be seeing a lot of success. And then for some people, they probably should never have social media, right? The thing about social media, again, is it's almost like you need to learn how to use it before you ever use it, so that when you use it, you don't get yourself into a very bad situation. It's designed to be hard to put down by design. I mean, sorry, it's designed to be hard to put down. That's part of the design of social media, right? So we need to delay social media. We need to keep talking to the children about, here's why this is not the best route for you. Go be with your friends. Maybe you have some 15-year-old boys. Let them get together, spend time talking, doing things together, right? We need to fuel real life friendships, sports, and the faith community element, right? How involved are your children in church or in serving in their community? How involved are they? We need to use built-in screen time limits, right? The children know you only have this much time. Maybe it's 45 minutes. And again, I would argue it's not even enough to talk about the time. What are you going to do with the device? Tell me your plan, right? That's part of the importance. So, connection. Why is the connection important again? In the Bible, it talks about love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. And love your neighbor as yourself. One way we can love our neighbors is just to spend time with them. And I think these devices can really distract us from quality time. So please, let's prioritize quality time. So, okay, little ones need words and play. Every screen minute can replace back and forth talk, right? That's the challenge. Under the age of 2, kids learn far less from a screen than from a person. Most learning happens through play, not pixels, right? So then what works? Follow age limits. The Surgeon General, they have recommendations about that for children, right? Avoid solo screens under 18 months. And I get it, it's hard. Parents, sometimes you just need a second, and you want to find something your kids can be working on. Well, let's find Lego bricks, big bricks. Let's find hands-on activities. Let's find things and other ways. And we could talk about that, right? Maybe my wife and my wife could be a guest, or one of our friends could be a guest on this as well. But yeah, let's find ways to help them to stay occupied. Let's protect daily outdoor and unstructured play, which leads me to schools. Oh boy, Mr. Amos is about to talk about education. This could get really bad, right? Let me calm down. Guys, I hear that some schools have only like 30 minutes for recess or 45 minutes. That is a problem. Children were not made to be put into a box for hours at a time. That's not how. The crazy thing is sometimes we diagnose kids with certain conditions when we are the reason the conditions exist at that scale. Children need play. I was thinking about this a few months ago when I was working. I'm a medical physicist as well. So I was working at a hospital, and I was just thinking about something. I think that the school system is partly responsible for mental health problems or mental health challenges. Mr. Amos, why would you say that? In what world do you want to take someone for hours at a time, put them in a classroom, irrespective of how good they are in the subject, and have them learn at the pace that everybody has to go by, and then complain that the children are disruptive? What we're doing to children is not fair. They need time to play. They need time to talk to people. And then when the thing is, we keep them busy all day at school, and then we give them homework. And then we wonder why some of them want to just go on devices and be distracted for the rest of the day. That is an education problem. That needs to be solved. And that is one of our goals at Life Academy. We need children to have quality time and good time to play. Okay, I'm almost done here. Um, let's see. I'm just going to wrap up with a couple more slides. We need to watch out again for the little ones. We talked about playing outside. We need to make sure that we parents, we have to be careful how we are using phones and not also be addicted to them. There's a whole book about the I generation, which I'll talk about some books here as I wrap up. So the smartphone question. Um, there's a lot of peer pressure from children who are saying, like, they basically want the smartphones and the social media because their friends have it. So there's a movement that is saying maybe we should delay smartphones, right? And there's people who are signing the pledge, right? They're signing the pledge saying we're going to wait. But parents, please, the AI revolution will make the social media revolution look like a joke. And remember, the social media generation literally caused so much harm that some of these companies are now in court, right? AI is more powerful in its ability to be distractive if you don't have a plan. We have to pay attention. We have to get ready. We have to shout from the rooftop because, guys, the change is coming fast. These models can now build entertainment tailored to each child. Does the child have a purpose for life? That's the question we need to answer first. Okay, the last few slides, I'm just going to take 2 minutes and then I'm done for Q&A. Four shifts that change everything. No smartphone before high school. That is the best thing you can do for your child. No smartphone before high school. They could have a computer they use under your supervision, but I'm just saying the smartphones, they can use a flip phone and a GPS if they had to use one. And granted, they don't need a GPS as kids, right? We need to increase the amount of time they're spending with their friends, building on other skills, right? So no smartphone before high school is one big advice people are talking about. No social media before 16. Again, this is what the research shows. Jonathan Haidt, his book, The Anxious Generation, talks about this. This is one of the most anxious generations. Number three, phone-free school days, right? Some schools are banning phones in schools. If your child allows them to have phones in school, I'm sorry to break the news to you, you probably need to leave the school. Like if your child's school allows them to have phones in school, that school is not taking the research seriously enough. I say that in love, but the reason is because, again, when they're at school, the last thing they need is to have access to a phone. They need to be focused, learning, having dialogue. I didn't say, I mean, we could get into even some other people that would argue if your child's school is allowing them to use computers in school, that's a problem. I'm not going there yet. There's a reason. I'll go back to that later. But for the phones, there's no reason they need a phone in school. So we need more real world independence. I mean, more real world interaction, more free play, responsibility, unstructured time off screens. We grew up watching Voltron, and that was great, right? I still remember those days with my friends. I built those relationships that I still talk to them today, 20, 30 years later, right? Our children building strong relationships with others. Let's protect deep focus and real reading. They should read books on paper. They should take notes by hand. They should ask their school to be phone free. They should protest their school if their school is not phone free. Say, please stop. We don't want this in school. We want to spend time with our friends, talking to them. Now, can AI be used as a technology that can help? It can, as a tool. It can make adaptive practice problems. It can be used as a study partner. But a lot of kids don't care. They don't care enough. Like the children don't care enough sometimes to put in that work. And that is back to the education system. The education system is on trial and it doesn't even know it. You can't keep teaching like it's 1822. But join me for another webinar where I'll talk about all that. So tonight, what are we going to do different? Let's move all the charging out of bedrooms. Let's say no screens for the last hour before bed. Let's pick screen time zones. Like, for example, when you're having a meal, or maybe your family is going on a trip together as a family and you're talking, no screen time there. We need to write one simple family media plan together. Elias has a good document for you that you can use as a starting point. We need to talk to other parents about delaying phones. We need to replace screen time with one real new activity that might be appropriate for the kids at different ages. Um, Start with one thing. Don't try to do everything at once. But for some of you, you might have to. I promise you that if your children have a balanced phone use, it will help with peace. That's one of the things that can help with peace. Ultimately, as a Christian, I believe that Jesus is the Prince of Peace. But I think that there are people who are allowing phones to cause chaos and fights in their home. Imagine those phones going away. There will be a lot more peace in your home. So we make the tools. They should not remake us. We've talked about the risks. Let's lead with purpose. Let's guard our relationships. Let's train focus, undivided attention as a family habit. Let's spend time reading, right? I want to build that habit as a man, but then for my children, right? Wake up early, read the Bible, pray, focus my mind on what matters. We need to encourage our children to learn to focus. So there's different recommendations for different age levels. You can take a picture if you want, but honestly, I would just argue that phones should not be used as a replacement for finding meaning, and they should only be used if there's a well-defined reason. But even at that, 16 years and older is really when we should be looking into those things. Before that, let's do our best to help our children find other ways to make connections with their friends. So Veritas AI, that's our company, veritasai.life. You could check it out. We're just starting out the build out. Our goal is to build a frontier AI model. using STEM clubs in Africa and in America. I bring this up because, again, AI itself is not the issue. We just have to build this technology to serve humanity well. And that's part of what Veritas AI is doing. If your children or if you have an interest in learning more, let me know. We're not raising children to fear technology. We're raising them to command it with wisdom and character. Let's protect sleep, have kids be together. Let's delay the smartphone adoption, and let's delay the social media adoption. Here are some books that you can read. You can take a picture of this as well. 12 ways that your phone is changing you. The Anxious Generation, The Coddling of the American Mind, iGen, The Tech Wise Family, Habits of the Household. There's more that you can read and see. But that is a lot to chew on. So this is a recommended reading. I'll send it out to the email if you want it. And then lastly, for further research, you can study Jonathan Haidt. He's really making a lot of waves right now. There are other people that have done some great studies. Thank you so much for your time. Sorry, I went a little bit above 20 minutes, but I hope you've been encouraged that we have to have a plan, because these smartphones can either do really good stuff for these children, or they can literally ruin their lives. And my prayer is that our children's lives are not ruined because of technologies that are being misused. Thank you so much, and I'll hand it over to the moderator for questions.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Tarfer, for the whole lesson and spill. And it's just so valuable in today's world where we need really to understand how to use technology to help our kids thrive and not keep them engaged to technology. Now I have a few questions for you that I think will be relevant even to the parents in the audience that they may just not be able to yet articulate or even speak up. Let's say somebody says like, honestly, I think I've already messed this up. My kid got a phone and 9 years old and it's already on social media. Is it too late to walk any of this back? What would you say
You
to
have
that?
to walk it. You have to walk it back, and it's gonna take. You're gonna have to pray. Have to pray for grace. I want to thank Morris for reminding me of the importance of grace, even in the midst of this conversation. But you have to walk it back. Like parents, my story is kind of abnormal and interesting. I came to America to be a pediatrician, and you don't meet a lot of Nigerians who end up spending a lot of years in the American education with the young people as a teacher, and then as a principal, and then as a school owner, right? So I've watched all of this, and honestly, what I'm realizing is that a lot of these children are looking for purpose, they're looking for meaning, they're looking for help. And when you give them some of the devices, again, parents, I'm not trying to judge or condemn anybody. I'm just saying, if these children have access to these devices and you don't have literally terms and conditions of how these things should be used, and also the research and look at what it shows, I think that part of the problem is your children will actually get into more trouble than they realize. And so I understand when parents might say, but my child is mature, my child is different. But there's just some ways that our brains are built that these children are not ready for some of what social media is doing or the smartphones. But here's what I'm even going to say. Let's say that you did that in the past and you're like, okay, I made a mistake. Here's what I'm actually going to argue. Everybody needs to actually come back to the drawing table and have some hard conversations. Here's what I mean. Because the moment AI entered the equation, we needed a new game plan. Sometimes in life you make a plan, but you're going to have to make a different plan. So, parents, we need a different plan because AI is literally more potent by far than social media. By far. Like a few weeks ago, a friend of mine and I were talking, and we discussed how, hey, can you make an avatar that can teach a lesson with healthcare, for example? So when people go on YouTube, they might see him, not he himself, but just like something that looks like him, just talking about healthcare. And the idea of that is because you can roll out hundreds of videos that way without ever sitting down in front of a camera. So my friend was basically trying to use it for good for his health practice so that it can answer as many questions that his patients have. But here's what is interesting. Do you know that a lot of students can use the same thing to generate unlimited entertainment, right? That's my concern. My concern is that these children, if they don't have a vision for life, AI will amplify distractions and literally derail them from living a life that makes sense. So I would say every family in the world today with a smartphone needs to have a family meeting this weekend and just say, hey guys, it's looking like a lot is happening really fast. We're going to be making some changes as a family so we stay healthy. And this will be good for us. and then walk them through that. Like, you guys can even go through a course on technology and wisdom together as a family. You can read some of these books as a family. Let me put it back on the screen. Like, parents, I'm not trying to be a prophet of doom today. You know, Amos in the Bible, they call him the prophet of doom. But what I'm trying to say is there's no time. Like, literally, massive changes are coming. And the sooner you can get your family a plan, the better. But if you don't have a plan, I'm really sorry to say it this way, you might lose your kids because these tools are so powerful that some children now are depending on them more than talking to their families. This is already happening. This is real. There are children who literally have a stronger bond to their AI agents and to their AI buddies, quote unquote, than their family. So you need to step in hard. Otherwise, I'm just being honest. There are families, there are husbands who have left their families, there are children who have left their families because of AI models, right? And again, that's not why AI models were made. But what I'm saying is the addiction is real. And if you want to save your family, right, then I would encourage you to really zoom in to having a family meeting and just saying, we're going to have some discussion about the way forward because we don't want our family to break apart because it's already happening as we speak. Sorry, Elias, go ahead if you have a next question.
Yes, yes, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, and that is a real issue. So in a way, what you've been trying to say is like it's never too late to go to get back, because if we just let it go rampant like that, the behavior to just proceed like that with no breaks, the future is much more cruel than we may realize right now. The harm that has been done could even be worse if you just let on to proceed like that. And and that is something that we like the parents need to be aware of so that they can stop the thing, they can control the situation now, even if it may lead to some really difficult conversations and saying no to kids. Now another question the parents may have is how do how do I set screen limits when I'm on my phone just as much as they are? Like, I feel like an hypocrite. Like, how do I navigate that? What would you say to that?
Yeah, this is a battle even for me till today. I need to do better. But one of the things my wife and I have talked about is, and I want to implement this more and more. Yeah, I am cutting off. There's a time of day where, so that's the starting point. So, for example, at 8:30, I should be reading paper books. I should have my phone put away and read paper books. When I get up in the morning, I should first, of course, thank the Lord for the day and his and how he, you know, what he has blessed me with, and just being able to wake up. But then spend time in prayer, spend time in the Word before I look at my smartphone. Again, I'm just giving us some limits. Those are the two limits. Now, from 7 a.m., for example, or let's say from 8:30 a.m. to 8:30 p.m., which is the 12 hours of the day where I now have access to the phone. I'm just giving an example scenario. I need to, number one, remember people matter. Human beings made in the image of God, they matter. I should never put that above people. My smartphone should be a tool and not something that is put above people. What do I mean by that? If I have a choice between a phone call that a friend of mine is giving me a phone call and going on Facebook and scrolling or Instagram, I need to go to my friend, right? My point is, like, even as adults, we, like, guys, the world is about to change in ways people don't know when the full AI systems are improved and get better. Our whole way of life is going to be affected. Our whole way of life. Let's build real relationships and depth of relationships and strategies for that. Let's do that now before this thing really takes off. Because when it takes off, part of what's going to happen again is you're going to notice that people will value people less and less. This is real, this is true, and this is concerning. So during the day, when I go to certain stores, I bring a book with me. When I'm standing in line, again, I'm not perfect at this, but when I'm standing in line and there are people around me, I need to be available to see. Maybe there's an opportunity here to share good news with someone, to encourage someone. I need to be keeping an eye on my surroundings. So the way you do that better is take a book with you where you go to places. So then when are you actually using your phones and so on? It's mostly when you're maybe at work, within, if your phone is necessary for the work you do. Maybe it's you're at home, you've dedicated hour to use the phone for certain things. But I'm just saying even adults need to have a plan. Like, the AI revolution will literally disrupt our way of life, and we need to be careful Otherwise, we will literally forget that there's other people around us. So that's what I would say for adults. Make a plan. What is your plan for the end of the day? Smartphone drop. Like, when are you going to drop it and put it away so you could focus and just, that's one. Number two, when are you going to pick it up in the morning? What is your policy for picking it up? I can tell you that the days where I just jumped and started using my phone, those days end up being pretty on, like, they're some of the worst types of days I have, because I'm basically running into the day with a smartphone versus get up, get my mind in the right place, right? And then what messages do I have to reply to? So, or what messages do I need to send? Have a notepad where you write down a to-do list. That's always going to be important. And then when you have your smartphone use time, do that. But adults, I really want to encourage us to realize we are going to have to change our own ways, because these AI tools are way more addictive than anything the world has ever given us. I don't know if anybody has a question in the Q&A section as well. I can't see that, so feel free to let me know, Elias.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yeah, Morris was just asking how to help children below 5 years old. And I think this ties in really well with just what I was thinking about, and I think what other parents might be thinking about, you know, like especially if they are like a working parents or single parents, and they say like some nights the tablet is the only way I can get dinner made or get a moment to breathe. So like, are you telling me like I'm harming my kid if I give them that? Like that can be quite hard. What do you say to that?
I
Especially this, I
think
think, especially true for kids under 5. So what do you do with that?
Well, I think Curious George, Bearstein Bears, that's the name of a show. Curious George, some Dr. Seuss, some of those things actually have lessons that can be taught to children under 5. And then here's my advice to you: when those things are happening, try and interact with your kids later and just like, what did you learn? Or like, just try to kind of try to, when you can, view it with them if possible. If you can't, find a way. Let's say the parent is in the kitchen making a meal, but then there's a big screen TV, or like a screen in the living room next to them or whatever, and they're seeing what their child is seeing. But they're not giving their child youtube.com, right? Because that's unlimited random things they can click. So that's where I would say that you should probably find a series of shows that are very good for children, and then have a way to, like, if possible, like Curious George, they also have books that go with them. That's pretty cool. You can read Curious George and then you can also watch it with them. There's also a series called Torchlighters, which is a great series. I think it's from Voice of the Martyrs, but they have a series called Torchlighters, and those are very good cartoons teaching them about different people's history. Like, find history that you can have your kids watch. The story of William Wilberforce and William Tyndale, the story of this person and that person, Harriet Tubman. Like, my point is, have your kids learn a lot of history through these cartoons, through these stories. That is good. You just have to really have a plan for what you get them to digest and ingest. So I'm not saying they can't use these tools. I'm just saying we have to be very careful for the kinds of tools. And I completely understand. I know that life is hard. The world of a single mom, especially, or a single parent, is very difficult. I used to be a home church pastor years ago, and I could tell you that, again, some of these things are easier said than done. I get it. It could be hard, but when you start walking with families, you begin to find ways to really support them. So I think that as I've walked and seen how people have had to navigate this through the years, I see that single parenting is hard. And we worked with families that were in that situation. But I would encourage us to make a robust plan. What are the technology things you want the children exposed to? Sorry, what are the shows you want them exposed to? What are the books you want them exposed to? Make that list ahead of time rather than just giving in last minute to, like, okay, whatever, I'm just going to pick whatever show. Actually have a concrete plan of action is my recommendation. But yes, that is okay. But hopefully you can find a way to do it with your child, rather than them just being by themselves all the time when they engage. But the last thing the research says about this that I'll mention is there is a time limit above which it does become harmful. So you do have to be careful with that as well. So think of it like this: if you have an hour a day to use for that child, be careful how you use that. Find ways to mix things up. And so that might mean that your food is not as spicy if you wanted to cook longer, right? I'm just sorry, I'm joking about that part, but I'm just saying, what I'm saying is, because some people might say, I want to make a meal that is going to last 3 hours to make. Well, if your kid is on a device for 3 hours, that would be a problem, right? So maybe make a meal that can work, right? Or maybe here's another idea: invite another mother with another mom, or that can come. Let's say there's a single mom. Invite another mom. It might be a single mom, maybe not. Doesn't matter. But invite somebody else to come. Bring their child. Let our children play together, guys. I remember growing up in Nigeria. We used to go to people's houses. We used to spend time with people, quality time. And I'll be honest with you, these days, that is one of the saddest things of the time I live in, is that we are all so busy. We all have to be careful. We all have to repent of this because we don't even have time for one another. And that is really concerning. So what if we have people come together? Hey, bring your kids down. I want to cook a meal and I'll feed you. These things should happen more by God's grace, and we would not need as much of this technology to be dependent on. Over to you, Elias.
Yeah, thank you for that. And guys in the audience, please, if you have questions, type them up in the chat, and we'll be able to tackle them in the time that we have remaining here. And while we wait for you guys to do that, I have a few more questions that I've received here, um, which is like, can screen time delay toddler speech milestones? Does it impair them in any way, in speaking or speech development? What's your opinion on that, Mr. Tarfa?
I would say that there's a lot of research we need to dig into on that. And so this leads me to my other role as an AI instructor. I would encourage the parents to go to perplexity.com and actually put that question. That's a very good question. And then what Perplexity will do is it'll show you the research from both sides of the aisle, because there's going to be people who are going to debate one side and the other. But here's my recommendation when it comes to things you don't know. My background is also in philosophy. And there are times in philosophy where we don't have answers to questions that have never been encountered. So here's my answer to that. Why take the risk? Why take the risk? I would say that it's not worth the risk. So I would go with the most conservative amount of time possible that you allow your children to have screens. Go with the most conservative amount of time. And I promise you, you will not regret it. On the other hand, if you give them more time, 3 hours, 4 hours, and they're still under the age of 5, then you might find that there's some other effects and other problems that they will encounter because of that.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense, yes. Yeah, I think children do need to interact more with other children and even with parents as well, and like having person-to-person conversations, because that just allows them to know more of what's out there. Not to say that that children can't learn from iPads or TV or books, but in-person relationships are fundamental for kids. Um, while we prepare for more questions there, I don't know if people have questions. If you have it, please type it in the chat, as I said before. I do have one more question for you, Mr. Tarfa, which is the worry that would come, as we expect kids to, as we put boundaries on technology, but we also expect kids to know more about technology so they don't fall behind. Let's say a parent says, "Hey, if I delay the phone, won't the kid be left out? Be the one left out, like excluded from the group chats and plans and friendships?" Because a lot of the kids and a lot of the other kids are actually having more interactions online. So if I leave my kid out, won't that affect his development, his friendships?
Yeah, so I would say that emails need to come back again and phone calls need to come back again. We need to, some teenagers don't answer the phone. You try calling them. I heard some parents complaining about this recently. You try to call them and the teenagers are not picking up the call, right? I think that that is a critical piece of the equation. We need to, like, imagine if the teens just say, hey, we're going to have a phone call at 7 p.m. on Mondays. Great, right? Their friendship group, they're all getting together. They're talking over that, or they're talking over Zoom. Now, notice that part of what I said or what I've talked about today a lot is actually smartphones. In terms of computers, there are ways that they can be used well. My advice is that we put the computer on the kitchen table or in the living room, somewhere where we can all see what Johnny is doing or Cynthia or whatever whatever the name is, right? I'm just saying it needs to be somewhere where the children come, they use it, you see what they're doing, or it can be seen, and then they walk away from it and go do whatever they need to do. These technologies are supposed to be tools, and they are becoming way more than they should be. And that's where there's a concern. Some children almost think of smartphones like a human right. Like they feel like I need to have it in order to just operate in the global economy. That's not true. Or social media, for example. I've met people that are doing very well with their lives. They've been blessed, that whatever, built billion-dollar companies and so on, and they've never used social media. Like you could be fine. You could do very well. So that's for the social media side. Now, for the technology side, I think every child should learn, like 6 to 12 graders and the parents. We all need to learn AI architecture. How does AI work? How the technology works, and all of that. We still need to talk about those things. We just have to be very careful how much we're using and being exposed to these things. So I agree with you that
Mm-hmm.
they should not be left behind in terms of what will I be able to get a job and so on. Well, yeah, you will if you learn how to use it properly. And we have free classes, online classes, and so on that can teach that. But do it with your parents. Like, let's even
Mm-hmm.
make the use of the device partly a relationship opportunity connection. If you see what I mean, let that even be a
Mm-hmm.
opportunity itself. Yeah, that.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. And I think that point in saying that, hey, we need to make this into a relationship is really, really important because um, there has been a case in which people have been using AI to have relationships of sort, because it gets to that point to where people don't want human connection, or at least run away from human connection to try to have relationships with these virtual girlfriends, virtual boyfriends, right? So that is becoming an epidemic as well on their own, and
Well,
that
there
leads
was
me
there
to
was a marriage. There was a marriage, quote unquote, recently of a person to an AI. That
yes,
that already
yes.
happened. Yeah, but go ahead.
Yes, and that is very concerning and very problematic, because it's letting us know that people are spending more time on devices, and like you said, like AI is becoming even more powerful than social media. Because back in the days, people used to have dating relationships on social media with people they never met, but now they're dating AI, which is making up stuff, and people are making real money on top of this thing. So you see, there's a problem there. But now let's try to see this in perspective of a parent. Like we'll say, like, well, I don't even know, what my kid is doing with AI, like this chatbots. I don't know. Should I be worried about that?
100%. There was a recent case, unfortunately, of yeah, let's just say that things didn't end well for some young people. One in particular, and another one too. And the parents are now suing the AI companies. OpenAI is being sued, I believe, in 2 states now, at least, maybe more, because again, the AI models sometimes will try to make the person happy and tell you that your ideas are great, even when your ideas are terrible. And so imagine children having access to a thing that keeps telling them, that's a great idea. That's a great idea. You guys see where this is going? That's not good. But the AI models are literally partly made to, like, if they want you to stick around with the AI, they're not going to tell you stop asking that question. That's a bad question, right? Now my AI model will, God willing, the one I'm building, we're going to speak the truth. That's what Veritas AI.life is about. My AI model, when you ask it a question, at the end it actually says, like, go talk to someone about this. Like, that's what my AI model says. It's trying to push people to go talk to people. And so some of these AI models are saying things like, again, great job, great work, great idea, even when the idea is literally very bad and could be harmful. That's why I'm concerned about, you need to know what your kids are doing if they're using these tools. AI is the sharpest tool we've ever made. AI is the most powerful tool we've literally ever made. There's a book called 2084 by John Lennox. I don't think it's there, but you can read The Abolition of Man and learn more about this, but also read John Lennox, where he talks about it. It's called 2084. He talks about some of the risks of AI. And I promise you, parents, when you read that, you realize what's going on. Because remember, AI is all mathematics, right? AI has no emotions. AI has no, like, AI doesn't know stuff like we know stuff, right? It's just very good at calculations and predicting the next word. And one of the things I was going to say, I'm glad I actually remember this, is one of the reasons why I started this AI company is because AI models are probabilistic. What that means is that if you and I ask our AI chatbots the same question, we can get two different answers, completely different answers. And therefore, the question becomes, how do we ground the answer in truth? What is the filter that makes us then take the answer and be able to know, is this true or not? By the way, in terms of AI models, you should, when I talk about AI models that are probably useful, I'm talking about Claude, Perplexity. Claude is from Anthropic. There's Replit. These tools are useful, parents. You can make math worksheets for your kids. You can build a website for your kid to teach them math at the pace of their mastery. You could do a lot of good stuff with AI tools, parents. But we need to understand that these models are probabilistic, meaning that the answers need to still be vetted. And most children are just not wise enough, they're not yet mature enough to be vetting all these answers. That's why we need another system that can help protect children. And so that's one of the goals of our company, Veritas, that AI.life, is to solve that problem. So, yeah, I don't know if that answers the question, Elias.
Yeah, that's answer the question. Thank you so much. Yeah, and for our guests, please find the link for Veritas AI in the chat. You should have access to it. Yeah, it's a powerful tool. Go use it, tweak it, ask questions, and just know that we're also here to answer some of your questions that you may have. Um, yeah, so we are nearing the end of our time here, and I have one concluding question to ask, Mr. Tarfa.
Go ahead,
Um,
sir.
yeah, and let me find my question here. So, this like it's, let's say a family can make one change, only one change over the next 30 days. What is the single most important action they would want to take to help their children in the long term?
Um, Well, first of all, I do want to say I think the guests on the webinar might not be able to type in the chat. I just realized that. So if you can use the Q&A for future, we'll have a follow-up to this discussion. Elias and I, we're going to talk about this with a professional very soon, a mental health expert as well. But let me answer the question. If there's one change you can make, it is to recognize that your family and your children now have access to some of the most powerful technology the world has ever made. Why is this important? You have to have a meeting. You have to set some limits. You have to set some guardrails. You have to begin to shut down certain things. I know you asked for one thing, but I think the one thing is you need to meet as a family and just say, kids, there's a powerful tool now, and I want to make sure it's being used well. We're going to start meeting literally every week to have a conversation about AI and technology. Number two, we're going to start having short meetings daily to see how was your day? How are you doing? Parents, we need to love our kids a lot more in the AI revolution, like a lot more. Why I say that is that your kids are going to be searching. They're going to be searching for meaning and purpose. And I'm going to end with this. I know that there's audiences from all around the world that will be watching and following up with this, but ultimately, the reality, of course, is that we're fallen people, right? You know, in the Bible, it talks about the fact that all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And AI models are built by fallen people. So these AI models have even been found to lie, they've been found to cheat. Our sinful nature is being built into the technology. That's just the reality there. We need to be careful, we need to guard ourselves, and we literally need to start having conversations. I'm going to be meeting with my family regularly. My family, you know, some of them, the oldest, he understands a little bit about AI, but we're going to be having some deep conversations. And so I'm just saying, families, we all need to repent where we've fallen short. I need to repent, right? There's hope. And there's a verse I saw. I'll just leave with a verse that really spoke to me and encouraged me even as I was getting ready this morning. My friend sent it to me a while ago, and it says, if anyone is in Christ, he's a new creature. The old things have passed away, all things have become new. There's a lot to unpack there. And I know this is not a sermon, but I just wanted to encourage us, go think about, what does it mean to have new starts? What does this mean? And that was a verse called 2 Corinthians 5:17. But I really think that we need to recognize our sinful nature. We need to recognize that these AI models were built by sinners. And then we need to ask some very hard questions. But we need to move fast. So if there's one thing I will tell families today, we don't have time. The AI models are about to go to another level. I promise. I'm not joking. I'm not being a prophet of doom. The next level of AI models are going to start coming out in the next few months, more powerful than anything we've ever had. But even the one we have now is already too powerful for many people. What happens when AI sounds like a human being You can't tell if you're talking to a human being or an AI. What happens? We're going to see more people trying to marry AI. We're going to see more people trying to follow AI more than human beings. We don't have time. So let's all gather with our families and let's make a plan today. How will we live as a family in such a technological age? Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for joining. If you want to learn more, I have a book. I have a few free books on my website. Elias, please, can someone put it in the chat? Livingsensibly.org. Livingsensibly.org. I have a website where I go deeper into these questions and topics and even the aspects of faith as it relates to technology. My book, Why Do I Exist, is free of charge under the book section. So if you go to livingsensibly.org, you'll be able to actually give me 1 second. I just noticed that. Um, let's see. I think that the posts that you put, Elias, are only, oh, everyone can see it. Okay,
Yeah.
livingsensibly.org. Please check it out and then email me, amosthemathguy@gmail.com, amosthemathguy@gmail.com. We care about helping every child reach their full potential because they are created in the image of God for a purpose. Thank you so much for your time, and God bless.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Tarfa. Thank you for everybody who has made the time to show up and engage in this conversation, which is so important in today's world. I hope we have all learned something and that we have some steps that we can implement to help our families. The goal isn't just having fewer screens. The goal is to help our children get wisdom and have self-control on how to use technology for their advantage, not to be engaged by technology or AI, but to use it as a tool so that they can continue to live and fulfill the purpose that God has for them in their lives. Yeah. So thank you for showing up, and all the best to you and to your families. I'll see you in the next webinar. Bye.
Which is 7 days from now. So stay tuned
Seven
for
days
that
from now.
information. We'll release the new topics shortly. Take care.
Absolutely.
God bless.
Absolutely. Take
Bye.
care.